stories exploding from the history books tonight. Byzantine Blitz. Kantakouzanos claims crown in coup caper. Vietnam votes vanish, diabolical Diem brother behind ballot bungle. And Tenrikos temple finally topped after roof revelation. Plus, coming up, Sister Monica Fingerhoven, the breakdancing nun. Can the Vatican handle her holy hip-hop? Those are the headlines. News without a shred of decency.
Dean, the news bang. The truth is out there and it's not pretty. At 1341.
Breaking news from Constantinople, where rival claimants to the Byzantine throne have sparked what experts are calling the mother of all punch-ups. The empire descended into chaos after John Kantakouzanos and John Palaiologos both claimed they were the real John in charge.
Witnesses report seeing aristocrats hurling gold-plated chairs at peasants, while monks engaged in theological debate by hitting each other with prayer books. Local merchant Stavros Kebabopoulos said, "I was just trying to sell my artisanal olives when some nobleman called me a plebeian waste of oxygen and demanded I pick a side."
The situation escalated when religious zealots joined the fray, arguing about whether God's divine light was created or uncreated, while simultaneously creating very real black eyes. Sources confirm the 7-year dispute has left the empire so weak, it's now being bullied by significantly smaller kingdoms, with Luxembourg reportedly calling it names.
Palace insider Magnus Drongarius reports that both Johns have agreed to share the throne, but neither can decide who sits on which half.
The Byzantine Empire, a South 55.
In South Vietnam, No Dinh Diem has declared himself president after an election so rigged it makes a carnival sideshow look legitimate. International observers described the referendum as a masterclass in ballot stuffing.
Diem, apparently channeling his inner emperor, received a whopping 98.2% of the vote, including ballots from the deceased, the unborn, and a particularly enthusiastic ficus plant.
Witnesses report seeing ballot boxes overflowing with pre-marked votes, while a local man claims his pet goldfish somehow managed to vote 17 times.
Diem, resplendent in a Triple Crown ensemble, promised to unite the nation through mandatory agreement and suppress opposition with the subtlety of a stampeding water buffalo.
The Byzantine Empire, a South 55.
Japan is abuzz with news of a massive construction project, dubbed the world's largest IKEA assembly. Religious volunteers have completed the Oyasato Yakuta complex, a sprawling 872-meter structure designed to house the parent of the universe.
Construction supervisor Hiro Takamura revealed the instructions were a bit tricky, especially the part about aligning the chakras with the cosmic vortex.
The complex includes a lecture hall for spiritual DIY and an emergency room for those who over-tightened their karmic bolts.
Local resident Mrs. Yamamoto expressed concern about having the parent of the universe as a neighbor. "The cosmic energy is playing havoc with my television reception, and don't get me started on the parking situation when they hold their universal congregation meetings."
Does this news bang? The great disruptor, fracturing fiction with facts.
With a weather forecast that promises to be as unpredictable as a squirrel in a wind tunnel, here's Shakanaka Giles.
All right, listen up, weather watchers. Tomorrow we're in for a real treat, a bit like finding a tenner in your pocket after a night of heavy drinking. South, crisp, autumnal, woolly jumpers, crunchy leaves, winds, blustery, nosy, Sunday roasts at risk of exposure. Midlands, mixed bag, showers, sunshine, Mother Nature, moody, Aunt Mildred, similar, after gin, wellies, sunglasses, prepare for anything. North, downpour, torrential, human sprinklers, activated, wellies, brollies, drowned rats. Not a good look. Summary, leaves, winds, mood swings, human sprinklers, Halloween, approaching, ghosts and ghouls, beware, and that's all the weather.
At 1813.
Plucky British forces have thwarted an American invasion attempt at Chateauguay in what historians are calling a rather embarrassing day for the Americans. Reports suggest that Charles de Salaberry, commanding a ragtag band of Canadians, British, and Mohawk warriors, essentially hid behind trees and shouted "boo" at 2,600 American regulars, who promptly fled in confusion. The entire American St. Lawrence campaign has subsequently collapsed faster than a soggy maple leaf. For more on this historical humiliation, we cross live via our time travel correspondent unit to Brian Bastable, who's standing behind a tree in 1813.
This is Brian Bastable reporting from the banks of the Chateauguay River, where absolute chaos reigns supreme. The Americans are advancing through the forest like a herd of confused buffalo wearing particularly tight underwear. Charles de Salaberry, that magnificent French-Canadian bastard, has just positioned his men behind what appears to be every tree in Lower Canada. The Mohawk warriors are moving through the undergrowth like deadly shadows, if deadly shadows carried muskets and had excellent aim. Oh dear, there goes another American soldier's hat, complete with the head still in it. The Americans are pushing forward with all the grace of a drunken moose at a tea party. Their superior numbers mean nothing in this dense forest where... Good Lord! Oh, somebody... Man, how... just took a tomahawk to the buttocks. The sound you can hear now is the clever devil Salaberry, using bugles and war cries to convince the Americans they're surrounded by an army of thousands, when in fact it's just a handful of very enthusiastic Canadians making a tremendous racket. The Americans are retreating. Wade Hampton's forces are falling back faster than my hairline in a war zone. They're abandoning their St. Lawrence campaign quicker than I abandoned my breakfast when the shooting started. The British-Canadian alliance has done it. Montreal is saved, and I've just lost another limb. But it doesn't matter. Nothing matters except the news. This is Brian Bastable, minus several vital organs, reporting for Newsbang.
Ooh, 1902.
Arctic explorer Baron Edward von Toll and 3 companions have vanished in what can only be described as the most perplexing case of directional confusion since my Aunt Mabel got lost in Debenhams. The Baron, apparently searching for something called Sanikoff Land, which sounds suspiciously like a failed theme park, disappeared somewhere between very cold and extremely cold. The ship Zarya, whose name I'm told means dawn in Russian, though I can't verify this as our Russian correspondent is currently frozen, managed to collect various specimens before losing its crew. And now over to Ken Schitt, who's been investigating why anyone would want to go to the Arctic in the first place.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing here on what remains of the last known location of Baron Edward von Toll and his merry band of frozen fools. Bennett Island, a god-forsaken rock in the ass end of nowhere, where 4 men vanished into the Arctic void like a fart in a hurricane. These crazy bastards were chasing a myth, Sanikoff Land, a phantom island that turned out to be about as real as my ex-wife's love for me. Von Toll, the magnificent maniac, led his team across this frozen hellscape like a penguin with a death wish. The evidence? A few scraps of paper, some scientific equipment, and enough geological samples to bore a classroom to death. But the men themselves? Gone. Vanished. Poof, like they stepped through a portal into another dimension of pure ice and regret. The rescue mission, led by Alexander Kolchak, bless his frozen nuts, found nothing but emptiness and despair. These weren't your average weekend warriors, folks. These were hardcore Arctic explorers who knew their shit. And yet the white wasteland swallowed them whole. So next time you're complaining about your morning commute, remember Baron von Toll and his boys, who walked into the great white nothing and became part of the endless Arctic mystery. This is Ken Shit, reporting from the edge of sanity, News Bang.
The Dine Zien te Tisten, a 55.
South Vietnam has elected its first president through what observers are calling the most democratic process money can buy. Ngo Dinh Diem, a Catholic politician with a penchant for creative vote counting, has secured a stunning 98.2% of the vote, a figure that statisticians say is mathematically possible only if you count each vote thrice and include several deceased constituents. The referendum has been hailed as a triumph of arithmetic over accuracy. For more on this historical electoral extravaganza, we cross live to our political correspondent Hardiman Pesto, who's been examining the finer points of Vietnamese ballot box stuffing.
I'm here with noted Vietnamese political expert Professor Nguyen Van Splendid, and we're watching the celebrations unfold.
Pesto, what exactly are you celebrating?
Democracy in action, Martin. President Diem has just won a landslide victory with 98.2% of the vote.
Actually, it was 98.2% in Saigon, but 133% in the surrounding provinces.
Hold on, 133%, that's mathematically impossible.
Not at all, Martin. It just shows the enthusiasm of rural voters. They were so excited, many voted twice.
Pesto, that's called electoral fraud.
If I might interject, the ballot papers actually...
The president's brother assured me personally that everything was completely above board. Look, here he comes now with the official results written on this napkin.
Written on a napkin?
Yes, and it clearly shows... Oh, sorry, that's my lunch order.
The situation is rather more complex. You see, voters were given red ballots for Diem and green for Bao Dai.
And red is lucky in Vietnamese culture, Martin. Very auspicious.
And what happened to people who chose green?
They were given helpful directions to the nearest re-education center.
That's not quite...
Pesto, are you actually witnessing widespread electoral corruption?
No, Martin, I'm witnessing the birth of democracy. Although I do find it odd that all these voters have the same name and address.
Right. Thank you, Pesto. That's quite enough democracy for one day.
1892.
1892 now, and it's not for the faint of heart. Investigative journalist Ida B. Wells has just published a report that's shaking the pillars of Southern society. Her findings: lynching, that brutal stain on America's soul, isn't about justice. It's about terror, power, and keeping black folks in their place. Wells has the facts, the figures, and the courage to expose the truth, even if it means risking her own life. For more on this explosive story, we go live to our intrepid American correspondent, Melody Wintergreen, broadcasting from the heart of the storm.
Memphis, Tennessee, 1892. Melody Wintergreen here, on Beale Street where the blues are playing, and the truth is hitting harder than a shot of Memphis whiskey. Investigative journalist Ida B. Wells has just dropped a bombshell exposing the ugly truth about lynching in the South. Forget those tired old tales about justice being served. Wells has the receipts, and honey, they don't lie. Lynching, she reveals, is a tool of terror, a way to keep black folks down, especially those who dare to rise above their station. Wells meticulously documented the horrors, the hangings, the burnings, the sheer barbarity of it all, and she didn't shy away from naming names, calling out the white power structure for what it was, a system built on fear and oppression. Her newspaper office, trashed by a mob of angry white folks who didn't appreciate their dirty laundry being aired. Talk about a hostile work environment. But Wells didn't back down. She took her message on the road, speaking truth to power, demanding justice for the victims, and inspiring a generation of activists. Her voice rang out, a clarion call for change, and it's still echoing today. Over a century later, Ida B. Wells is finally getting the recognition she deserves. A Pulitzer Prize, a postage stamp, statues, even a Barbie doll. But her greatest legacy? The truth she uncovered, the lives she saved, and the fight for justice she ignited. Melody Wintergreen, Newsbang, from Beale Street, Memphis, where the spirit of Ida B. Wells lives on, a testament to the power of one woman's voice to change the world.
News Bang, your home for brutally honest truth serum. We're not making this up. 1977.
And now our science correspondent Calamity Prenderville with a special report on Britain's triumph over smallpox.
Good evening, Science Watchers. Today marks the anniversary of a remarkable British triumph in the war against smallpox, thanks to the pioneering work of Dr. Margaret Thimble at the Clacton-on-Sea Institute of Viral Research and her revolutionary Pox Be Gone detection kit, which consisted of a modified Viewmaster and a small bell. The last natural case of smallpox was identified in 1977.
The patient was Alimau Marlin, a hospital cook who, despite having access to the finest British medical technology, including the NHS-approved electric fever detector Mark IV, managed to contract the disease while heroically transporting 2 infected children. The British-designed quarantine suit he should have worn, made from recycled raincoats and Wellington boots, was unfortunately in the wash that day.
Thanks to quick thinking and the deployment of Britain's finest export, tea with extra vitamin C, Marlene survived. The WHO response team, equipped with their British-made virus vacuum, essentially a modified Hoover with a HEPA filter, contained the outbreak faster than you can say, God save the Queen.
Marlene went on to become a vaccination champion, touring Somalia in a converted Morris Minor, spreading the good word about immunisation. He credited his recovery to a strict regimen of Bovril and listening to Test Match Special.
This marked the end of naturally occurring smallpox, proving once again that British innovation, combined with proper tea breaks and sensible knitwear, can conquer any disease. This is Calamity Prenderville, reminding you that science is brilliant.
News Bang, nailing truth to the wall with a sledgehammer of accuracy. Midday, 1921.
Chicago has unveiled what can only be described as the most pretentious shed in human history. The Chicago Theatre, a building so French it practically surrenders when you walk in, has opened its gilded doors to the masses. Reports suggest it's less a cinema and more a palace that accidentally shows films. With 3,600 seats, each presumably stuffed with the finest peacock feathers, it's being called the Wonder Theatre of the World, though one suspects that's mainly by the people who built it. For more on this architectural extravaganza, we cross to our culture correspondent Smithsonia Moss, who's been investigating why Americans felt the need to build Versailles in the Midwest.
Now, at this point of the evening, we welcome listeners on FM who've just joined us.
Whoa, Newsbang Nation. It's your girl, Smithsonia Moss, reporting live from 1921, where Chicago just got a whole lot fancier. Honey, let me tell you, the Chicago Theater ain't just some movie house. It's a goddamn palace. We're talking French Baroque opulence, a sprinkle of Versailles grandeur, and enough gold leaf to make King Tut jealous. Those architects, Rapp and Rapp, weren't messing around. They were like, let's build a theater so extravagant it'll make those stuffy opera houses look like back-alley speakeasies. So, picture this. It's October 26th, 1921. The Windy City is roaring with jazz and bathtub gin, and the Chicago Theater is throwing open its doors for the first time. Imagine 3,600 people, all dolled up in their flapper finery, stepping into a lobby so opulent it'd make Marie Antoinette weep with envy. We're talking sweeping staircases, crystal chandeliers that could blind a bat, and enough velvet to clothe a small army of Elvis impersonators. This wasn't just about watching a movie, honey. It was about experiencing a fantasy, a taste of European elegance right here in the heart of America. And let's not forget the entertainment. The Chicago Theater wasn't just showing movies. It was a full-blown extravaganza, with live orchestras, vaudeville acts, and even appearances by those early Hollywood stars. It was the entertainment epicenter of Chicago, a place where you could rub shoulders with socialites, gangsters, and maybe even catch a glimpse of Al Capone himself, though you probably wouldn't want to stare too long. The Chicago Theater wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of the times, honey. A time when movies were becoming the hottest ticket in town. A time when people were eager to escape the drudgery of everyday life and lose themselves in a world of glamour and fantasy. And let's be real, that sentiment still holds true today, doesn't it? We all need a little escape, a little dose of magic in our lives. And the Chicago Theater, with its timeless beauty and rich history, continues to offer that magic, transporting audiences to another time and place, a time when movies were truly an event. So, if you ever find yourself in the Windy City, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's a trip down memory lane you won't regret. Wahoo!
Done news bang, cracking skulls for brains, then bashing them with facts. The Danes to Tistin, a Sautertitan 55.
The Tenrikyo faith has unveiled the first 25 wings of their colossal Oyasato-Yakata complex, a structure so vast it makes St. Paul's Cathedral look like a garden shed. Reports suggest volunteers built it as a spiritual exercise, though questions remain about their health and safety protocols. For more on this monumentally spiritual undertaking, we cross live to our religious affairs correspondent, Pastor Kevin Munstrance.
Good evening, blessed viewers. Before I begin tonight's tale of Eastern spirituality, I must address our producer, Maxwell 3 Shirts Thornbury. He's been in quite a state since visiting the massive Tenrikyo complex in Japan last summer. You see, this isn't your average place of worship. Oh no, this is a structure so vast, you could fit 17 Wembley stadiums inside it. Though why you'd want to, I couldn't tell you. The football would be absolute chaos. Now, poor Maxwell, he's always been keen on Eastern spirituality. Bit too keen, if you ask me. He arrived at this enormous complex, determined to achieve instant enlightenment. Reminded me of this British tourist I once knew. Always in a rush. That one. Went to a Zen temple, marched right up to the monk and said, "I want enlightenment and I want it now." The monk just kept sweeping the steps and said, "Patience." The tourist said, "I haven't got time for patience. I'm on a package holiday." But back to Maxwell. There he was in this vast complex, reading his 10-minute guide to enlightenment. Bit optimistic, if you ask me, when he heard this enormous gong. Now, he'd skipped breakfast that morning, trying to be all spiritual, you see. So, naturally, he assumed it was a dinner bell. Spent 3 hours waiting for someone to bring him sweet and sour chicken. And when they finally explained it was actually a sacred ceremonial gong marking the path to inner peace, well, he got himself in such a spiritual tangle trying to bow and apologize while simultaneously filling out a Deliveroo order that he's been walking backwards ever since. The NHS doesn't know what to make of it. Last I heard, he was trying to cure himself by listening to whale songs played backwards. Says it's working, though he's developed an inexplicable craving for plankton. And that, dear viewers, is why you should never mix your spirituality with your dinner plans. You might end up walking backwards into enlightenment.
And finally, it's time for a peek at tomorrow's bog roll. The Times lead with New York goes underground. The Mail go with Curse of the Bambino broken. The Express lead with Mystery ship goes down. And there's a picture of a ship's wheel. And the Mirror have Government Minister denies being minister. That's a puzzle. The Daily Star have Alien lands on Earth, buys cheese sandwich. That's it. If you've been affected by any of the issues on tonight's show, phone our special Newsbang action line, but it's just a recording of me saying I'm not in. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. Newsbang is a comedy show written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.